So, this is what we talked about last week. Where would I start this line?
At the 5.
At the 5, on which axis?
Y.
Y. And then my slope is negative 2/3, so where do I go from there?
Down 2.
Yeah, down 2 over 3 to the right.
Jimmy, you were doing the same thing.
Hey, and it's really hard to copy my graph, so if you need to draw an arrow to the negative 2 and say rise and run. So, yeah, we're going down 2 and over 3 to the right. We are always going to the right unless we run out of space, which is going to happen on the next one anyway, so I'll explain it then. It's the negative just changes whether you're going up or down. Okay? For the next one, we're going to start at 6 because it's got a plus 6. And then this slope is 2 or 2 over 1. You don't have to add the little one on the bottom, but that way you can see that you're going to rise 2 and run 1. But we're out of space. So instead of going up 2, right 1, you can switch both directions. If you have to switch, though, you have to switch both of them. So instead of going up, I'm going to go down 2, and instead of going right, I'm going to go left 1. So you have to do everything backwards or nothing backwards, basically.
Wait, if what? You make it negative?
So we're out of space to go up 2 over 1.
Okay.
So we're going to go down 2, left 1. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're out of space and you have to reverse everything.
Got it. Reverse Madison, I swear to goodness. Shush it. Make me.
This one's bad.
Hey guys, I'm recording this for everybody to learn from, by the way. Everybody who's at home.
Oh, wait, really?
I don't know if they can hear you, but
Wait, what?
Why
They're
would you
recording,
tell us at the beginning of
this
class?
class.
I didn't know they were any hooligans.
Honestly,
Okay.
1, 2, 1.
Just call me a hooligan.
Where does this one start? Where does this one start?
-5.
0.
-5 or 0? What do you guys think?
Negative 0.
Zero.
0.
Negative
Negative
1.
1.
Literally says
Oh.
negative 5.
Okay, raise your hand if you think 0.
For the slope.
Raise your hand if you think 0.
Yeah, Avery.
What if I raise my hand for right now?
It's either
You
0
think it's 0. Okay, who thinks -5? It is 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the number in front of x is always the slope, so since it doesn't have an extra number at the end, it's a 0, and it starts right here in the middle. And then we can go down 5, right 1, and up 5, left 1.
I'm gonna make this 7x plus x. Like.
Okay, so you can either go down 5 and right 1, or up 5, left 1.
Wait, we go over 1?
Yeah.
Doesn't it say 0?
I can't do
Oh, okay,
straight
never mind.
lines.
Now we
Same
have
question.
No, it's a good question now.
Whatever. I'm done.
Okay, so this is graphing lines the easier way, where it's in y equals mx plus b form. Today what's going to happen is they're not going to be like that. Sometimes these can actually be easier than the ones we just did. Some of you will like method 1 a lot. The only thing that's tricky about method 1 is you have to sort of memorize it. Okay? So standard form in the lesson for today is where you have x and y on the same side. And I'm going to put an a and a b in front of them. So it's ax plus by equals c. A, B, and C don't stand for anything. They're just places where we will put numbers. Whereas in y equals mx plus b, m was the slope, b was the y-intercept. That doesn't happen on this. A and b are just going to turn into numbers. Okay? And what we're going to do is do it 2 different ways. The name of the methods is how you end up doing it. So this one is going to be called the intercepts method, because we're going to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And then method 2 is going to be convert, because we're going to make it y equals mx plus b instead. You can use both of these methods. The first one's a little bit easier, but sometimes the first one gives you ugly fractions or numbers that are too far off the graph, so you have to use the second one. There is a reason why we need both of them. And this is one of those cases where you do need to understand both of them. Normally I'll say, pick whichever one makes more sense. This is one of those you need to understand both. You can still like the first one better, but you have to be able to do both. So an x-intercept, it means that you are on the x-axis. And if you're on the x-axis, then y equals 0. The y-intercept is on the y-axis. And if you go to the y-axis, x equals 0. So it's like the same kind of thing, just opposite variables when you switch. And it's really easy to solve for these because you're going to plug in the number 0. And zeros are really easy to plug in. You'll see why when we do this first one. So for the x-intercept, what you do is you plug in y equals 0.
Whoa.
So see how I just wrote the equation again, but I made y 0?
Do I have to put x-intercept thing?
You don't.
Can I just put x?
You can also put that on the line below if you don't want to. You can just put x.
Can you write? Get glasses. No.
What is 4 times 0?
0.
0. So the reason why 0 is so easy to plug in is because now we don't need that there. It's just 0. So really we just have 3x equals 12. And if 3x equals 12, what does x equal? Yeah.
Wait. Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, you divide by 3 on both sides.
Why not 4y?
We're going to do that one afterwards. So we're going to do both. We chose x first. It doesn't matter which one you do first. But before you move on to that one, go put a point where x equals 4. Right here. Do that before you move on to the other one. Otherwise, you will end up confusing yourself. Okay, and then I'll write this one a little bit bigger. Then you want to find the y-intercept. And for the y-intercept, you make x 0. Sorry, I know that takes a minute. And then 3 times 0 is 0. So this doesn't really need to be there. Dividing.
Why? Because there's a plus sign right there. Well, it's not there.
But it's not in between the 4 and the y. If there was a plus sign between the 4 and the y, then we would be subtracting. So think of it as like a positive 4 instead of a negative 4, not a plus.
So then you go up.
Yeah. Divide by 4, y equals 3. So now you have 2 points. Guess what we're going to do? Play connect the dots.
Okay, can you use that method again on the next one? Because like
Yes,
I
that's
was
why we have
seriously
to.
confused.
Yes, that's why we have to. It makes sense the second time you see it too. Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have to like actually divide it by 4 or since it's just 3?
No, you can just write it. You can just write it if you want.
Like, do we have to know like to do that? But since it's 3 and then divided by 4 times 0, like 3 and 3.
I think I know what you're asking. I think I'm going to do that on this next one anyway. So hang on just a second. So basically, guys, what you can do is write the equation without the y's and write the equation without the x's.
Yeah.
Because you're making the other one 0, so it goes away.
Well, wait. Okay.
So I'm technically plugging in 0 for y right here.
Yeah.
What's negative 5 times 0?
0.
So we don't even need that part.
So you just do 4. Why do I need? Okay.
So then on this one, you're making the x 0,
Yeah.
and that just leaves you with this.
Do I even have to write down? Can I just like put this on the calculator or not to write down my work?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that. It's fine.
I might do that.
I would at least do this part. Write down this.
Okay.
X equals 5.
Oh,
And we're going to divide by 4 on both sides.
Yeah.
and then put it over here, just because that way you don't forget which variable it is. You don't accidentally put the 5 on the y.
I just put the
And then you're going to divide by -5, or you can ask yourself, -5 times what is 20?
Why wouldn't it be -4?
It's -5.
Wait, why wouldn't it be negative?
Because there's no negatives up here.
What? Are you
Yeah, I don't
It'd be
understand.
-5 because there are no negatives up here.
You said, why wouldn't it be -5?
Yeah, why is it -5?
It's not.
It's not.
But you put -5y equals 20.
Huh?
Which 5 are we talking
Oh,
about?
no, that's a different 5.
Okay,
That 5 can't
hang on. Do we understand why that is 5? Positive 5.
Minus 4 by 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then this is coming from this. So that minus is actually like a -5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What did you say, your mom?
That's actually a really good question. So if there's a minus, that makes the y part negative. So then you have to divide by -5, and 20 divided by -5 is -4. And then you draw a line through those 2 points. The only thing is you have to understand why you're plugging in 0. And you're plugging in 0 because right here on the x-axis, y is 0. So no matter where you go, y is 0. It's kind of like a shortcut. The hardest part about that one is it is a shortcut, so you have to remember how to do the shortcut. The second method is where you're going to try and get y by itself. This one's called converting. We've done something like it before, way back in Unit 1, where we rearranged formulas, but each formula was different. This time, everything you do is going to follow the same 2 steps. Okay, and I'm going to use this example first, then I'll fill in the steps. Okay, but it makes more sense if you do an actual problem. We want to get this y all by itself. So we want to get rid of the 3x. How do I get rid of the 3 and the x at the same time to the other side? Subtract 3x. Not divide, because you don't want to divide by x, things get really weird. So we're going to minus 3x. Here's the part that was tricky when we did this in Unit 1, and it's still going to be tricky now. They cross out over here, but we're not allowed to actually put the 12 minus 3 together because the 12 does not have an x. So instead, what we do is we write negative 3x and 12 together. Then we have to decide what sign goes in between them because the x has to go first. Because the x always goes first in y equals mx plus b.
Plus.
Yeah, y plus.
Because it's in that formula.
Yeah. And that 12, is that 12 negative?
No.
No. If the 12 was negative, we would put a minus. Or you could put plus negative 12 if you wanted to. And then on the other side, we have 4y. So the first thing you do is subtract the x's to the other side. The second thing you do is, how do you get rid of the 4? Divide. It's going to make some fractions, but it's actually going to make fractions that you want. I know that sounds crazy because we don't like fractions. It crosses out that one. Then you just leave it as negative 3 over 4x. That's your slope. It's actually a good thing when slope is a fraction because you need to know how much to go up and down and how much to go over. And then what's 12 divided by 4? 3. So the 3/4 is necessary because you start at 3 and then you go down 3 over 4. Down 3. Actually, I can't go down 3 over 4 again. So I'll go up 3, left 4. And there's your line. This one takes a little bit more work, but some people find it easier because it's easier to understand what you're doing. You're just trying to get it to look like the ones we already did, and then from there, we already know how to graph it because that's what we did last session. Yes, John?
So
Why is -3? Why does it go up? Something positive.
Because then I switch to the left. So I'm going down 3, right 4. Is that what you're asking?
Okay.
So I went this way first, but then I ran out of space, so I reversed everything to go the other direction too. Right, so basically what you're doing in this section is subtracting the x's, then dividing by the number in front. And you're going to do the same 2 steps every time because you're starting with the same form, so it's going to take the same 2 steps every single time. Move the x's, divide by the number. Move the x's, divide by the number. And we're going to do the same thing on the last one. But before I switch, I'm going to show you something that I did on today's notes. What do you notice about these 2 lines?
They're the same thing.
They're the same thing because we started with the same thing. So we solved this problem we solved the same problem 2 ways. Using method 1 and using method 2.
I didn't know.
This is an example you can use both ways. Some examples don't work both ways though. And I'll show you where the first one on your homework is after we finish it.
Avery, you're fine.
So then, just like I did before, I'm going to do this one a little bit faster because when I take too long to explain it, I think some of us just lose track of what's going on.
Yes.
I'm going to subtract the x's to the other side so that they cancel out. But when I do that, I have to write the -4x and then the 20. I don't make this 16 because there's not an x on the 20. So you're not allowed to combine them. The 20 is positive, so we're going to put a plus in between. If it was negative, we would put a minus. And then we divide by the -5. But when you divide, you have to divide everything by it. And if the slope is a fraction, that's okay. You just leave it as its fraction. And then 20 divided by -5 is -4. There are 2 possible ways to write this answer. One is to leave it like that, and the other one is to realize that you're dividing 2 negatives right here. What happens when you divide 2 negatives? Yeah. So it basically just becomes a big plus sign. So I'm going to start my line at -4, because that's my y-intercept, and go up 4 over 5. And there you go.
Wait.